Hey everybody, welcome back to 18 Outdoors. Today got Mr. Cedar Ridge Chronicles, Daniel Williams.
What's going on, guys?
This sucker is starting to put the deer together, the thought process, the tactics on public land, Alabama, and into another state this year. And so, first time we've done that, right?
Yep.
Second year of public land bucks in Alabama. So
correct.
So, I mean, very pretty, symmetrical buck. Got another one laying right there, just Alabama public land, just nothing wrong with them. I mean, great deer. Then, pick that thing up down there. Next level buck, Missouri public land. It's pretty cool with me.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very nice buck. Yeah, I like it too. So it's pretty cool because me and him was both out in different states at the same time frame. Then we had
Is it 2 days apart?
About
1 day apart.
1 or 2 days apart.
I think you killed and I killed the next day, or?
I thought you killed first. I killed on 13th, November 13th.
Okay, I think I killed the 11th. I thought, yep.
So 2 days apart, in 2 different states, and very similar bucks, but he just had more mass. Just a very nice, probably a year or two older buck. Fantastic hunts and stuff. But I want to kind of talk about what now that, last couple of years, you just boom. So what's made the switch? What thought process or what tactic or what, I guess, plan that you've come together that you're kind of sticking with or whatever to be this successful and being pretty consistent, now versus before. So
I think you talking about just on public or
just on public,
The biggest thing that I realized on public was that there's so many people that hunt public. I'm used to hunting. On private, it's a little bit different. You got more people in a small area, but you got guys going to the same spot all the time. Whereas on public, it's very inconsistent where people are at. You got different people every day, people going to different places. And what I kind of learned is you got to look for places that nobody else is going to really notice. That's what I key in on, where you've got major sign, major topography, the stuff that everybody talks about.
Right.
I usually don't sit there. And I think that has helped me incredibly, because what I'm used to doing is finding the stuff like that, but not a lot of guys know about. Because, generally in hunting clubs, when you're hunting with, I'm going to say an older generation, those guys are not as savvy to podcasts, YouTube, stuff like that. They don't know some of this stuff. They got their favorite box stand, they go sit in it. So you can use these tactics to go kill your deer. Whereas on public, I like to kind of do not necessarily the opposite, but where people are going because of the podcasts, I try to hunt accordingly. I basically hunt people, you know what I mean? Where they're at, I kind of hunt according to where I think they're going to be, and that's how I do my scouting. I kind of scout, basically tracking myself to see where I would go if I was a deer hunter, see where I've been, and then see what the deer would do according to my track.
Yeah. So either be where the people ain't, or be where the people are going to push the deer to.
That exactly.
So how they affect your
And
movement.
typically there's going to be sign there, and that's where I usually sit. It's just way less sign, from what you're. If you see the big with this whole bunch of sign, usually there's going to be people that know where that is. That's something I've learned that I did not know. The first year I ever tried to hunt it, I didn't do no good, and I was trying to hunt where I thought I needed to be, and that's where everybody else was at. I was just in there with everybody else.
Two more of the actual real big sign, the real big.
Yeah, and a lot of it where you had 5, 10, 15 scrapes in one spot where everything was concentrated. Yeah. And it's where the sign was where it's supposed to be, but that's also what I learned was there's going to be people who have found it. When you get in there in a spot where you think nobody's ever been, there's 20 other guys that not only have been there before, but they're coming that year.
Now, is there a difference between Alabama and then the Kansas, or not Kansas, but Missouri as far as that?
Well, yes and no. This is the first year I've ever hunted out of state on public. So really the only difference is the number of deer that we saw. Obviously as you go north or out west, you're just going to see, we saw several bucks. All of them weren't big deer, but the difference was seeing the numbers of deer, whereas here, our numbers are not our numbers are higher, but the deer that we see in the same number of days is a lot different.
Right.
Whereas up there, we did have pressure. There was a lot of people hunting public, and one thing that's a lot different up there is when people saw you, they just come over and talk to you. It was all real nice. They didn't have any trouble with anybody, but they just come see if I'd seen anything, and
Wow.
you know, it wasn't like they just wave and leave.
Yeah.
You know, they come over and visit them.
Wow. Yeah, most times in Alabama they wave and just walk off.
They just kind of go off. But like I said, I mean, I didn't have any problem with that. As long as they wasn't mad, they didn't mess with me. They just asked how I was doing and said hey, and 2 or 3 different times. But yeah, I mean, it worked out, so I can't complain.
Yeah, you can't complain.
Yeah.
So the rut part, you know, which I know you've been hunting Alabama a long time, and 4 or 5 years now, I guess, on Alabama public. What's the difference in a visible rut?
Up there, it was, I mean, it's black and white. Whereas here, I mean, I think our rut lasts 4 months here, you know, in different areas. It's just, and when you see it, it's almost over with. It's like if you ever do get to see a buck chasing a doe, it's kind of a rare thing in Alabama. I mean, generally, you know, people don't see all that much chasing down here. Whereas up there, I did a lot of calling, even while I was scouting. I mean, you can kind of walk around and do a little bit of calling, and deer will respond to that up there a little differently, you know, than down here. But also just the intensity. I mean, when you see, if there's a buck chasing a doe up there, there's liable to be 5 bucks behind her.
Right.
You know, whereas here you'll hear some grunting and get all fired up, busting through a cutover, and then here comes a spike. You know, that's it.
You know, and I think down here, you know, over the last few years, up there there's an older class of deer, so they get more competition, so it's more visible chasing stuff. And
Right.
I think down here it's starting to get like that to an extent, you know, especially if we've got good mass crops and stuff, and we don't have any drought or anything. So we're starting to see, to me, the last few years are more visible.
I've definitely seen more than when we were seeing 15, 20 years ago, for sure.
So,
Which a population have kind of changed that to where people have kind of learned to manage a little bit better as far as letting bucks grow older and shooting more does for management too, I think has helped.
so I know in Alabama, we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but Alabama, I know that what trail cameras you've been running and stuff has been like a similar system, say what I do or so where Jamie McKay might do is timing some of them dates
Yeah.
with daylight photos and kind of putting that together where you need to be or what area you need to be. So is that explain how that kind of has changed some of your thought process, you know, to be successful? Like you killed pretty daggone quick. So this year's
Right. Yeah. The big difference is whereas used to what I would do, say on private land, was if I knew where the bucks usually rutted, if I had pictures of certain dates, that's where I would hunt those dates. Whereas here, when I try to put my cameras on that kind of sign, the people started showing up during those dates. It's like if I had bucks those dates, I'd also have 6, 7 different people on camera that first year. And the next year, I started looking in between those spots. And if you just find one rub, that's all it took was, if I could find one little whip rub or anything that showed me where it connected the dots in between the two good, you know, where all the sign was at, then I'd put a camera there and just see what happened. And sure enough, those same bucks would be on that trail that you didn't even recognize or didn't notice, and there was no people. You know, I wasn't getting nobody's messing with my camera. Nope, there was no people on camera. And I realized that some of those places are even closer to be able to get into. You know, you may have a spot a mile off the road, another spot a mile off the road, or there may be a little place, you know, 200 or 300 yards in there off a random spot that you can get out on their own and be connecting those dots and still hunt the same deer. Those deer are just staying in between the people. But it's also gives you a chance to be able to go in there and sit in a place where more than likely nobody's going to come in on you. You know, you can go in there and you can hunt where you want to hunt. But by running those cameras last year or year before last for this past deer season, I was able to actually go and see where the bucks were at on dates in those spots where I could go in there and hunt them where there wasn't any people. And as long as they, you know, if you got those trails and know those dates, then that has been very consistent. It's just, instead of having it on a scrape, it's just on the trail. You know, I've just kind of figured out where they're traveling and just catching them as they're traveling those dates.
Now that elevation associated or
A
cover
lot of
associated?
times it is. If the seems like the flatter the land, the more the cover plays a part, and the more the terrain, the more the elevation plays a part. And I think most of that is just air movement. I think it's when you get the thermals,
Right.
you're gonna. I mean, the bucks already know where the air is. You know, you can almost determine a thermal line based on a rub line. You know, on the side of a hill. It's like wherever that line is more than likely where they can catch you.
Yeah.
And that's I like hunting those lines.
Yeah.
And it changes different topography. You know, I mean, it could be anywhere from on flat land. It could be 2 foot elevation. They'll travel.
Oh, really?
I mean, they'll travel a little ridge. It's just mainly a little hump down through there. But the taller the terrain, the more you got to try to walk that terrain and figure out where that line is.
And what are you preferring on that as far as, I mean, I guess you talk about the thermal playing the major part of it. Do you think that's got something to do with is staying consistent with a key elevation, kind of like
I think it does. I think is
500 feet or 600 feet.
exactly.
Or something,
I think and it depends on how high the terrain is. Like say you've got big giant mountains, well where the thermals rise and how they react at certain times of the day with the sun coming up and everything else is going to be different elevations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you can even go a few miles down the road, you may find say a creek system where that line is at 300 feet. Well, there may be another creek system just over the next creek. That line may be at 650 feet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think that, like you're saying, I think that line right there is going to be determined by the way that terrain lays and allows the air to travel. You know,
Which a creek
whether
system with a certain amount of water movement could affect that too.
probably,
So,
yeah. And I think that the deer can't see that line, but where that
smell it.
they can smell it, and that's just where they travel, and that's where the sign is going to be at, you know, in those random spots.
So, say here, one thing we have is like we got some dark woods areas, you know, some hemlock areas, stuff that's on more northern sides, you know, and it stays more shady. How do you play that in, do you think, as far as bigger buck habitat or bigger buck cover versus?
Well, honestly, I've never even paid any attention. I tend to stay around thicker areas, but from what I've seen, the bucks a lot of times will travel in wide open areas, especially in terrain. Matter of fact, all 3 of these deer, I couldn't even see a thicket. I mean, I was in wide open hardwoods, but in every situation, the sign that I found was in thickets when I was scouting. And then I just had to figure out how they were getting from the thicket to the thicket. And they don't, like, you know, hear people talk up north and out west about how deer move a lot during daylight. And here, you know, they kind of do the same thing. They got to get up and eat. They got to get up, you know, pee and feed and whatever they got to do. But I think that here, you don't see a whole lot of that crossing from thicket to thicket until the rut kind of gets started, and even very little then during daylight. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm keying in on is you find those thick areas, or like you said, some of those different slopes and stuff that's got some different greenery. You got pines, or you got whatever, you know, different kind of thickets growing, and those bucks are going to stay in those thickets a lot of the year. But when they get ready to start moving during daylight from one to the other, and they'll spend a little bit of time, especially if you've got cameras in, say you've got cameras in 2 thickets and a camera on that trail, they'll spend a lot of time in those thickets. But there's going to be a few days of the year where they're going to, during daylight, travel right through those wide open areas that doesn't look like there's ever been a deer in history. And that's where I'm usually sitting.
And that's very limited time during the season.
That's why I hunt dates so hard, because I mean, most of the time the bucks I get pictures of, I get 1 picture of a year. And that if I just go there for 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row during those dates, and if he's not there, I just go to the next one. So I can't, you know, if I get a 200-inch deer on camera, I might, at that point in time, I might go around and put up 30 cameras, try to figure out what he's doing a little more often. But generally, I mean, if I'm out to try and get a 120, 130, hopefully, then I'm going to skip. If I've got a 140 on camera once a year, but I've got a 130 the next week, I'm not going to stay with that 140. I got to leave and go to 130. You know, if I'm going to be consistent and try to kill the other one. You know. But.
Right. Now, what would you like? What was your goal what goal would you set for an accomplishment to call yourself consistent? Say, are you happy with it? If I can find and take one mature buck or two? What is your?
I'm very happy with one a year. Even growing up, I mean, I always said if I could get one good deer that I'm happy with a year, and I mean, I don't mind a 110, 115. I'm perfectly happy with that. And the older I get, the more I want to be pickier.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I mean, a 110 still excites the fire out of me. I mean, I love seeing antler, and I've gotten to where now, you know, it's a little different when I go out of state. Even in Missouri, I did see a lot of deer that were 110 inches that were really pretty deer. And it's just a different mindset going out there for me. I wish I had the same mindset here because I would love to be able to do like y'all do and pass up some of these that I do shoot. But at the same time, if I can kill one a year, I'm very happy with that. I still look at it kind of like turkey season. I don't have to tag out.
I don't want to feel like I'm obligated or pressured to shoot a certain number of deer and kind of get below my goals or whatever, you know. What other people do is fine, you know, but I'm a real believer, like you set yourself a goal. Like if you want to shoot, like you say, you want to shoot a 115, 120, well, it's hard to do that shooting 90s or whatever,
right,
or smaller deer. So you might cut yourself a little bit short, or you might be disappointed a little bit. So I don't worry about it like it used to. When I was young, you know,
right.
You got.
I think everybody kind of has their number too. It's like from growing up hunting clubs so long, I was used to, like, the biggest deer of the club, maybe a 120 every year. You know, so if I could kill that 120, I kill the biggest deer in the whole club all year long. You know, and sometimes, I mean, some of them clubs, you ain't got no deer bigger than that on camera.
Right.
So, you know, transitioning over, when you've got hundreds of thousands of acres of public land, you can get pictures of some decent deer if you put out enough cameras on any of it. You know what I mean? They're on all public land. It's kind of surprising at what you can get pictures of if you put your work in. But now, kill them's a different story. and my transition now it's been kind of tough for me, is trying to get out of that mindset of, if I don't get me a 110, 120, I may not kill anything, and moving on into that mindset of they're here and I ain't gonna kill them if I shoot the 110, 120. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's kind of fun because I haven't had that problem in a lot of years, and it's kind of got butterflies in my stomach, making me want to pass up some of these deer like I'm shooting, even though it may make me sick for a little while having to do it. But at the same time, I've enjoyed seeing more and more bucks each year that are nice deer. You know, which that's what's been a lot different than when I was a kid. I didn't really know what I was doing enough to see enough bucks a year. Now that I've got a little bit better idea, then it's easier to pass them up when you know you might see another one day.
Right. On the trail camera stuff, how much do you rely on that? Do you let that affect your decision a lot? Or?
It depends on. I do. I mean, most of it's the dates, not necessarily the trail cameras. It's just getting the information. Because even before trail cameras, I was using those dates based on when I killed deer in the past, you know, and when everybody else killed deer in the past. I mean, you can study, you know, like hunting club books and stuff. If you're in a hunting club, you can tell where all the deer are at when they get killed. But as far as my trail cameras, I use those to do my scouting during deer season when I'm not sitting in those places. You know, nowadays, I mean, if you're there, you know when the deer are there, and you know you probably need to go back there the next year. But if I know where deer were at last year and I can sit there, then I can just put a camera over here. And where I've got cameras, I don't ever hunt. And then the next year, I never have a camera where I've already got pictures. That's the way I put up my cameras. I never run a trail camera where I've already had a trail camera.
Wow.
So that's basically.
You know, I got some areas that I keep them out year round just to kind of see what happens during that season.
And sometimes I'm very interested to know. I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder if he's still in here. I wonder if there's a big buck in here right now, you know, or whatever. And I just get so paranoid about mainly people finding my camera. I think that's the biggest thing. I would rather not know what deer is in there. If I already know there's deer in there those dates, I'd rather not know what deer is in there than somebody find my camera and know somebody's in there. I think that's
I don't worry about that as much. Now I think it's kind of more important to me is like, say like this year we had the drought and stuff like that. So if you've got an area that you're real familiar with and you keep some cameras in strategic places just to see what that lack of acorns or the drought or whatever, how that affected
that same spot.
That same
and that's
spot,
very
see what changes that and kind of tie that in with some information. So.
Yeah, because some of that information I do not have, and it would have been really reliable year before last.
Because the last 3 or 4 years, a couple of times we've had different environment where the deer just completely done something different.
Yeah.
They didn't put out as much effort on the rut as far as visible sign and stuff because of the lack of, I guess, body build up for the extra food that they would have had. So
right.
They kind of held back. So, but again, just like you do, I'm putting cameras out to gain information for the next season by the specific dates and tying that in. But I also like keeping up what's going on with some of my historical areas, just to see what's going. Because sometimes you get some crazy buck come through there that's just wonder why that sucker come. He just come through there once, whatever. Then you'll get some other ones that kind of homestead, and you can kind of put more a pattern on that buck for that area. So versus the one that comes through there just trying to find a doe or chasing the doe. So.
Yeah, you can generally tell the ones that live there, because those are usually the only ones I ever get multiple pictures of. And a lot of times they'll be there before the rut, like right when you put your cameras up. Like if I put my cameras up in September, I'm able to get a picture of them in 3 days. You know what I mean? And I may not get many more pictures of them at all until the rut, and I may get him on camera once or twice, but then he may show back up, in February, or whatever. And he's usually the one that's living right there close. You got all these weird bucks that just come in and out. But
well, tell us the story of this buck right here. What went with this?
Well, that guy, he was in the same place where I got my drop tine deer the year before, and the drop tine deer was on. I believe he was on was it the 23rd or 24th or something like that. I think I killed that on the 26th or 27th. It was the same week. And that was the reason I was in there. I didn't have a camera up, nothing. I just went in there the date I was supposed to, and there it was.
So you already had your historical data.
I did, and I'm pretty sure
trusted that.
Right.
And just I'm going to do that because of what data I had.
And that's very important. I've never really mentioned that before about hunting those dates, but trusting your information is very important. People, generally what I see a lot of people do is they don't trust anything they're doing, and they tend to climb down or move or walk, or they just don't hunt. And if you know the dates, if you'll just sit there and be patient and wait and quiet, then you'll be surprised at what you'll be able to see or kill. But I'm pretty sure that buck right there was the one. I shot one year before last that I lost, and he was a real pretty chocolate horn, dark horned 8-point, and it was within 2 days of the same date in the same exact tree, same spot. And I'm pretty sure that was that deer.
That's him.
He had a scar on his front leg, and I think that's probably where I had hit him the year before. Which makes me feel good, because I was really hoping that deer didn't go off and die somewhere and we not find it. But he looks just like that. He looked just like that the year before, if it was the same deer.
Are you going to go back to the same spot next year?
Same dates. Yep.
Let me go with you.
You help me get him. You help me get him out of there. You know where it's at.
Yeah.
You can sit there all you want.
I appreciate that.
You got a couple of trees I get to sit in, though.
Oh yeah, I can do that. What about? All right, tell us the story on this Missouri buck.
That right there, man. To me, that may have been the best morning of deer hunting I ever had. Which it is my biggest buck, so it really was. But we had gone in there scouting for 3 days. And I walked up the day before we were going to start hunting. I walked up on a really nice 9-point. Not this buck, it's a different. There were some splits and stuff. He's out there about 80 yards. I started to try to stalk him with my bow, and I was like, that probably be a bad idea. So I backed out of there, let him get going. But he was checking a scrape. He was working a scrape, and I videoed him on that scrape, and went on backed out of there. And the following morning, I told the guys, I said, I want to go back in there early, see if I can get in there in that tree had the scrape under, see if I can't kill that deer. Well, I went in there, started putting my sticks on the tree. I had my saddle, and I got up on my second stick, and I saw something move. And it's dark. I didn't even have my flashlight on because I knew that buck was kind of in that area. Well, I had seen him at 9, or I think it was 10 o'clock the day before, so I wasn't too worried about getting in there. I was thinking, well, he'll be here around 9, 10 o'clock hopefully. Well, no, I seen something move. I looked around the tree, and I could see his frame. He was real white horned, and he was bedded in the CRP grass about 30 yards from me.
Yeah, wow.
And I had come in there, the grass was taller than I was, just about. And when I got in there and got up on that second stick, he still didn't realize what I was because behind this big old tree. And I'm sitting there looking at him, and he's looking at me. Well, he stands up and starts walking toward me and comes over there and starts smelling in the scrape right there in front of me. And he's not 10 yards.
Wow.
Well, I get my bow pulled up to me, and he's sitting there looking at me, nocked an arrow, but my release was in my backpack. I usually climb with it on, but it was dark, so I mean, I didn't think nothing about that. I'm sitting there trying to knock an arrow, and it's just starting to break daylight at this point. I mean, it's been probably 20 minutes all this has been going on. I'm trying to knock an arrow. I tried to draw on him twice, and my arrow popped off the string both times trying to shoot fingers. So I'm sick. I mean, I'm just sitting there watching this buck right in front of me, can't do nothing. Well, he turns around, walks right back across the field, goes in the woods. So then I'm losing my mind. I'm panicking. You know, I'm pulling all my stuff up, put my other stick on the tree, and climb up there, get on my platform, and got my bow up, got my backpack up, and put my release on. My backpack was laying on a limb. I still hadn't put my strap up or anything. Got my release put on first, and right when I did, here comes a big old 6-point, runs out, and up there you can't shoot 6 points. It's a big one. He's a nice 6-point. He comes running right in front of me and turns and runs down the CRP and stops and looks behind him. Well, I thought he had been bumped by somebody coming in from the other direction. The way he was acting spooky. Well, this doe come running out from the same spot, but she run the other side of me about 30 yards. I ranged her. I had my rangefinder out, ranged her just to see where the trail was she was on, right at 30 yards. Well, she turns around and looks behind her, and I'm sitting there thinking, these deer are running from somebody.
Right.
Well, I look back behind her, and here he comes. I mean, he's just loping right down the same trail she was on. And right when I saw him, I just dropped my rangefinder, clipped my string, and she took off running. The doe did. Well, he come right up to where she was standing and stopped and started smelling where she was standing. And right when he stopped, I let my arrow go and just zipped him. He took off about 50 yards and fell. And I'm losing my mind at this point. It hadn't been 10 minutes, you know, since I got on my platform. I couldn't even remember if I'd clipped my tether. Like I'm checking, make sure I'm not about to fall out of the tree, you know, just a nervous wreck.
About that time my phone goes, blah, blah. I just shot a monster, or a freaking monster.
Yeah, I just shot a freaking monster. I was up there texting everybody, man, I was shaking, losing my mind. And I mean, this was 6:40 in the morning, 6:45, something like that. Yeah. And it was one of those feelings, like I've shot before and been thinking, man, I don't know, you know, and I didn't even want to text nobody. I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to find this deer. But when I shot, I was using a big old 2-inch cut blade, and when it hit him, it just there was a triangle. I could see the triangle hole in the side of the rib cage. When he run, I was like, that deer is going down. That's what I was hoping anyway. I put all my stuff back out of the tree, climbed down and walked around the corner of the field and seen his belly. And I was just like, man.
Wasn't no tears with it.
Oh, I bawled. I cried like a baby. I sure did.
That's awesome. That's a very nice buck. I mean, and it made one of your goals, the Pope and Young. So.
Yep. So. Well, he didn't quite make Pope and Young. He made Buckmaster.
Buckmaster.
He missed Pope and Young by 2/8.
A little bit. Right.
Yeah, 2/8. That little guy right there. Yep. If that'd been about a ½ inch longer, he would have made Pope and Young where he broke off there. But he did make Buckmasters, and I mean, he's still my biggest buck. Yeah. He was 138. That's some change.
Very, very nice buck. So.
And for me, that's
one good thing
about as good as it
gets. They got a little bit better scoring system than I prefer versus.
I like the full credit. I mean, I think if they grow it, you ought to get credit for it.
Yeah,
I like that too.
Well, sweet. Well, so when you go hunting, you get in and you get to your spot, you get out of the truck, grab your pack or whatever. What's the one thing you've got to have in your pack besides your gun, of course, toting that, you know, that basic, what do you have to have in your pack?
I always bring food and water. And some people go with, they like to stay as light as possible. Now, I do have a first aid kit. But I like to hunt long, and a lot of places I hunt, there's no phone service. And I like to go in with the assumption I'm not coming back till after dark. I don't care if I get out of my truck at 2:30 in the morning. I like to go early. I like to get in there and get quiet, and I like to have that option to stay daylight to dark. I don't always do it, but I will usually stay in the tree till 2 o'clock. If I decide, or if I'm in a spot, let's say I'm way up in elevation, that it's not an evening place, I don't usually climb down till about 2 o'clock. I've seen a lot of deer between 11 and 1. And even if they're traveling around 12, 1 o'clock, I like to give them a chance to get out of that area or get wherever they're going for that evening. Usually by 2, some of the thermals have started to kind of change, and it's got a little different environment at 2 o'clock.
Right.
And then I'll climb down and ease out. But if I'm seeing deer, or if there's some places that I hunt there's deer in there daylight to dark, different times of the day, and I like to be able to stay if I feel comfortable, and I want to stay. I want to have food and I want to have water, because I do not like to be uncomfortable trying to hunt. Plus, if something happens, I mean, first aid, food, and water, pretty important.
That's basically, you want a mini store with you.
That's it. I want the assumption that something's going to happen and I got to stay overnight. I'm going to be able to actually enjoy myself until somebody finds me.
Right.
You know, that's always in the back of my mind.
Well, what's your preferred food then?
Personally, I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They don't freeze.
That's
You know,
one of the best things there are.
peanut butter and jelly is hard to beat. If it gets real cold, it doesn't freeze solid. Granola bars and stuff work, but if it's cold, it'll break your teeth. Yeah.
Oh,
but yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. I do carry a lot of stuff. I like to carry my stuff to clean the deer and all too, if I'm gonna pack one out. But generally, I'm gonna come back to the truck anyway, so I can just keep that in the truck.
You can come get some of that, your kill kits, whatever. Some of them.
I just swap everything out.
Most of the time, I have a pocket knife, you know, maybe a little gloves. I like to have them field dressed before doing anything. So too much.
Something else I do have, I've got those they come out with those little battery charged hand warmers that they're rechargeable, and they also serve as a battery backup for your phone. And I've always got those with me too. That way you got 2 battery backups and 2 hand warmers, just in case one or the other.
Well, so what's your backpack weigh generally then?
24 pounds.
24
Yep.
He weighs it before he leaves.
Yeah,
That's why he knows he's got everything.
Yeah, it is
23 pounds. Huh? Wait a minute.
Yeah, oh, I'm missing something. Yeah.
Oh,
It's usually right at about 24 pounds.
Sweet. Well, it's been an awesome little video. I mean, and I'm proud of how you've accomplished. You know, obviously in your house you've killed some very nice deer, but you have transitioned it to the public land thing very well, and I'm proud of you, man.
Well, I appreciate your help. I mean, you've helped me. If it wasn't for folks like you and Jamie McKay, I wouldn't even have ever tried it, and had never tried it until the day I met y'all. You know, and after I met y'all at that get together that time, we got to talk, and I was like, man, these guys they're doing it. You know what I mean? And if they can do it, then it's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if I could do it, but I wanted to try, and I just got tired of paying high hunting club dues, and I just want to do something different. I don't know. It's kind of like bass fishing. I'm a crappie fisherman because I just want something different.
Right. Yeah, you got the public land thing is also you got more of a free range, you know, where clubs.
I like having an infinite
in certain spots.
Yeah, you really do have infinite land almost, and clubs have gotten a lot more strict on their rules since back in the 80s and 90s. Used to, you know, it was a fun place to get together, and you cooked out, and you slept in the same camp house, and you had that camaraderie, and everybody was trying to help one another be successful. Yeah. And now everybody's got campers, and everybody's real secretive, and they're a lot more independent of one another or from one another in a club. So they started putting rules in place where you couldn't sign out till a certain time, and you know what I mean, stuff like that, where you're very limited because nobody communicated, and then you couldn't take what you knew to try to harvest a buck. It didn't really matter at that point in time how good you were, how much skill you had. Woodsmanship was useless because you couldn't even go hunt them. You couldn't beat somebody else to a spot.
Right.
Whereas on public, you're at the mercy of your woodsmanship skills. You know, and I like that. I like the fact that you can't bait. I like the fact that you can go whenever you want, you know, because you have to learn it.
Right.
In order to be successful at it, you either got to get real lucky or you've got to learn how to hunt.
Right.
And that is fun. And it's fun with guys guys like you and Jamie and all of y'all guys that are successful doing it. That's what re-sparked me, was being around guys that were good at it and enjoyed helping one another and talking about it. You know what I mean? That is awesome. I just love that. That was what I loved about deer hunting to begin with when I was a kid. Right. And having that camaraderie and being able to call somebody, I mean, man, like when I shot this deer, I mean, I had 4 or 5 people begging to come help me pull it out of the woods. Right. I mean, you can't beat that.
No, you cannot. That's right.
You know, that's fun.
Yeah, it's very fun, and it's good to have that group of friends, you know, that,
Yeah.
that'll share that and do that without you having to worry about some other things.
Yeah. Well, it gives you the confidence to go do it,
Right.
you know, and not be afraid to do it or.
Right. That's the least thing there where, you know, that's my motto, get them flat. You don't worry about anything else. You got to get the sucker flat.
That was the first thing you ever told me.
It's
The first thing I ever said was, how in the world am I going to get a deer out of there? Because I'd showed you on my map, first place I scouted. I said, I want to go in here and look. But I don't know how in the world I'll ever get a deer out of there. You told me, you said, you worry about getting them flat. We'll worry about getting them out of the woods.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, well, all right. If you,
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could hold you there. I didn't know you at the time, but I was like, that sounds good. But
Well, I mean, that's the least of your worries.
Yeah.
The hardest part is getting them flat.
Yeah.
If you get them flat, you get sucker out of there. You got to do 20 trips a piece at a time.
Right.
You know, so,
Yeah, where I come from, you kill a deer, everybody goes and gets in the shower. You know, they all go out to eat.
All right. Again, this has been an awesome video and really enjoyed talking to you, brother.
Yeah, thank you
and,
for having me.
and enjoyed being friends with you. So, hey, season's coming fast.
Yeah, it'll be here in a minute.
These shows are coming. Looking forward to seeing y'all at these shows. Hey, it's time to get them flat. Please like, please subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see y'all. Hey, everybody. Thank y'all for watching the videos. Well, again, we appreciate y'all's support. If you haven't liked, please like and subscribe. And you don't care if you haven't got one of our books, check out Amazon and get a book. Also, we got a link on there where you can, on our YouTube channel, where you can go on. We got a little store set up. Like if you're interested in any kind of merchandise, shirts and stuff, you can check that out. And we really appreciate anything like that. So, again, we appreciate y'all's support. You know, keep watching. We're gonna keep trying to share the outdoors and how we do some things, and try to help everybody that we can enjoy the outdoors. And you know, we do this for just basically because of the environment and the community that's involved and built around hunting. So again, we appreciate y'all. Like, share, and we'll see y'all again.